WCLN 1170 Radio and Star Communications Channel 16 proudly present the We Should Know Show, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative. Now, here's your host, J.W. Simmons, as we consider closely what we should know.
Welcome back, folks. We Should Know is on the air. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host. Thank you for being with us today. We're talking with two folks that know a lot about one particular town here in North Carolina, and it's called Roseboro. We have the mayor with us, Mayor Alice Butler. Mayor, thank you for taking time to come in and talk to us about the things that are happening in your area and in your world.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Tyler, you've been on before, so I'm going to give you a quick introduction here. You've been involved in a kind of a grant program, helping a small town move forward and kind of changing some things and kind of staying on top of issues that oftentimes folks don't have to follow through on, and being very creative as well. Thank you for coming back and having a conversation with us.
Thank you for having me.
I want to open today, and I think the thing with Roseboro for me is this whole idea of the name itself, and the history reveals that a fellow by the name of John Rose, I think, was kind of one of the founding fathers over there. Is that correct?
Yes, that's one of the theories as to how it got its name. He was actually a conductor on the railroad and came through and saw a beautiful rose bush.
And that railroad still goes through Roseboro.
No, the railroad bed is still there.
The train does not.
The train does not. No, that ended before I moved to Roseboro, which is in 1989. So I'm not exactly, but it was prior to that. But the railroad bed is still there. And that's actually where part of the Mountain to Sea Trail comes down, the railroad bed in Roseboro.
Perfect segue. We want to talk about that. We're talking about stuff now that dates back to the 1800s.
Right.
So, I mean, we're talking a town that's got not only history, but a lot of historical impact for this area.
Oh, definitely. I mean, Roseboro, and it's been said many times, but it was the only bank in Sampson County that did not close during the Depression. It was the only bank. It was had the first pharmacy, as I understand, had the first car dealership. So there were a lot of firsts in Roseboro. And of course, it became a seat in 1891, I believe. Mm-hmm.
We also had the first medical clinic.
That's exactly right. The first hospital. The first hospital.
Well, it's interesting when you look at that, because a lot of people look at Eastern North Carolina and they don't recognize that there's a lot of things happening here when you look back at particularly the 17 and 1800s that were first, simply because that's where settlers were coming in. That's where they hadn't even got to the western part of the state yet.
Right.
And so this is kind of fascinating, but you mentioned, and we're talking about history, but I'm going to fast forward real quick. And you mentioned the Mountain Sea Trail, and we talked a little bit about that a while ago off air. That's a fascinating process, and I think people may have forgotten it. And it goes right through kind of downtown Roseboro and continues on to the ocean.
That's correct. It ends at the Outer Banks at Jockey's Ridge, as a matter of fact. So it starts at Mount Mitchell and comes all the way through the state. And we're very fortunate to have the Coastal Crescent Trail. And that's the part that we're in. We're in segment 12. And like you said, we are one of the few downtowns that the Mountain to Sea Trail actually goes through. And the Mountain to Sea Trail, they have been a friend to Roseboro in so many ways. Just a couple years ago, they came up with the idea on the railroad bed of making the brick pathway and recognizing people in Roseboro. And people brought bricks and have their names on, family members or businesses, different things, just, to remember our heritage in Roseboro, because there is a lot of heritage there. So that was the Mountain to Sea Trail that got that project started. And just recently, we have these large electrical boxes on the Mountain to Sea Trail on that part of the railroad bed for food trucks and stuff. And they're, quite frankly, aren't very attractive, very useful, but not attractive. Mm-hmm. And just recently, the Mountain to Sea Trail worked with us with a project. Autumn Copeland, an artist that paints things, scenes from the Mountain to Sea Trail. And now we've got 3 beautiful images on those electrical boxes. Wow. And it's all in partnership with the town of Roseboro, the Mountain to Sea Trail, and an artist to get some artwork up.
I know, Tyler, a lot of things in that area you kind of deal with, and talking with you in the past, somewhat of a visionary to try to create things. How hard is it to create a destination for a small town, to say you want to come here because of what you're just talking about, the Mountain Sea Trail or other things that you've been doing?
I would say with Roseboro, it hasn't been too difficult because we're all kind of on the same page. So we want to be a destination. But we also want to be a place where you think to come eat, you think to come shop, to play, to work and to live. And so I think with that mission in mind, we've come together and we have unique experiences. And so really, I would say since January of this year, we've seen a lot of growth happen in downtown. So we're getting those visitors, we're getting those eyes, but we're also working with the business merchants to kind of create a community, to where we're able to excel in that destination and in that idea. And so you have partnerships with artists in the Mountain to Sea, but we also have our community garden that's taken on. Yeah. We started a concert series last year, and it did well. And so we're continuing with the second series this year. And so our next concert will be April 26th. But you have small things like that not only engage the community, but it gives a visitor opportunity to want to come to Roseboro because something's happening.
So I think one of the things that strikes me, Mayor, is that when I look at Roseboro, there's a reason if I live in Raleigh or if I'm living even in Charlotte or Wilmington or somewhere that I might wake up one morning and go, look, I just want to get out of town for a while. I don't want to spend, $20,000 or $30,000 to go on a ship. I just want to get away for a day trip. Mm-hmm. This is a perfect venue for a day trip.
Well, and that's exactly right. And we're actually in one of the Mountain to Sea Trail books, we are a day hike for them. And we incorporated that. We're actually the shortest hike, and it's a loop, a 2-mile hike, I believe, that they have in their book. And incorporating that, and this was a vision. And I was thinking about this the other day. It just takes a long time for things to come about. But about 5 years ago, we started talking about a trail in Roseboro. And then when Tyler came on board, that was one of the things that we continued. Mm-hmm. And now we have the Roseboro Heritage Trail, along with that, the hike through the Mountain to Sea Trail, which is a 1-mile loop right there in town, takes you on the Mountain to Sea Trail through downtown, down Broad Street. We show you the historical places in that. And we want people using that every day for a hike. It's 1 mile. Do it 2 times. You've got your 2-mile loop mm-hmm. in. We've even added some lights on the railroad street so that it would be safer. I don't want people walking at night mm-hmm. on it, but, just trying to think of safety and stuff. Mm-hmm. So we have created the Roseboro Heritage Trail right there in Roseboro for our local people to use. But we also, as Tyler kept saying, we want it to be a destination. The town of Roseboro proper is 1,200 people. 1,200 people, it takes more than 1,200 people to keep the restaurants open, the boutiques open, 2 grocery stores open. So fortunately, we pull from a very large area in the county that mm-hmm. comes to Roseboro mm-hmm. to support us. But we need the people from Cumberland County coming, from Bladen County coming, from other counties all around. And I will give credit to our restaurants. They have done a good job of marketing to other counties, to other people outside of our area, to be able to be successful.
One of the things I want to have a conversation about, and this builds right into that destination thing. Some years back, there was a lot of effort put into expanding NC 24 and 4-lane. There was a lot of conversation at the time about, when they do that and they bypass smaller towns, it's going to close the town down. Have you found that what we're just talking about gives people a quicker access to Roseboro in the sense they can get there quick, they can have a day's event, they can hop back on, they can be in Wilmington, wherever they want to, but they can hit that quick 4-lane and so forth. Has it been an asset, or do you see it as something that has been problematic?
I think it's been an asset. We have been very fortunate, and I'll be honest, I was nervous whenever it happened, whenever they talked about it for years and years and years, and now it's happening. But for the town of Roseboro, it's actually been fine. It has not, the businesses have not hurt from it. One of the big things I think that really did help was when we realized that it was going to be what they call those bulb outs. it was going to be hard I consider Salemburg, I think of us as brother sisters. And, that
Absolutely.
242 Salemburg to Roseboro, and with Lakewood High School, we needed to keep that open. So when we realized what the road was like, and we started talking with DOT and realized, a bridge needed to be put here, that really kept things open for us as far as that. So that 242 traffic is just like it always was, which is absolutely perfect. And like you said, you can get to Fort Bragg in 25 minutes. You can get to Fayetteville. I mean, it's just so easy to get there that it's easy for people to come, and we're easy access off of 24 to get to Roseboro. So we've been very fortunate. It has not hurt us at all.
And I think one of the things, Tyler, with that is that it seems to me if I am I'm in Jacksonville and, I say, well, I'd like to go, check out this. I can hop on 24. I can be over there in a short period of time, and I can go to one of the restaurants. I can walk the trail downtown. I can say I went there today and this is what we did, and go back. And you have that day trip in.
Right.
That's what we're working towards. Yeah. That's
how important, and I want to talk about this, and we'll probably pick it up on the second segment here, but this idea of specialty venues like restaurants and so forth that are downtown, and I know you've got several, are they critical to you being able to attract somebody? I mean, I guess my question here is that the reason I want to go to Roseboro is
the restaurant, and that was one of the things that came about in 2017. We actually had a group of professionals that came to Roseboro, never been to Roseboro, never heard of Roseboro. They were coming from Charlotte, Raleigh, all over, and they just came to our town for a couple days, 2 days as a matter of fact. And they toured the town. They listened to about 25 of our town folks came in, kind of gave them the vision of what they saw for Roseboro. They looked at our downtown. They looked at some of our buildings. And they just kind of told us what they thought would work in Roseboro. And the thing that came out of that was Restaurant Row. Yeah. And so, we've had some setbacks. We've moved forward, and then we have a setback, and we keep moving forward. But we keep moving forward, and that's the key here. But the restaurants are critical for this day tripping to work. It's critical for people to have a place to be able to go eat. And honestly, right now in downtown, on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesday nights we have it. But Mondays and Tuesdays during the day, we do not have a restaurant open downtown. Hopefully that's going to change in the near future. So it is important to have that downtown. But Mi Casitas came, about 5 years ago, which is out at Lakewood Plaza. But that's been a wonderful asset whenever they came. So, and that's within walking distance. Let's be real, Mi Casitas. And now we have the Cork and Brew that just opened, the coffee shop in what was the former First Citizens Bank building on 24. So, there's other options out there, but I do hope that we can soon get a restaurant that will also be open Monday and Tuesdays to fill in that gap.
We're coming up on a break, so we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to kind of drill into some of those venues downtown and what folks can expect when they get to downtown Roseboro. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We'll be back in one moment. We're talking about Roseboro, North Carolina.
Just because something may work doesn't mean it's right for your business. Let Star Communications' knowledgeable consultants help you customize a hosted voice system that's right for you. Our dedicated experts work with you to understand your business needs and guide you at every step, from choosing and installing services to ongoing maintenance and support. Contact Star today.
Eastern North Carolina is a beautiful place where we gladly choose to call home, and we strive to provide the best communications services. STAR is committed to improving communications to all our service areas because we want to improve the communities where we not only work, but also live. STAR Communications. We are neighbors serving neighbors.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Again, thank you for being with us today. My name is J.W. Simmons, the producer host of this show called We Should Know. Our guest today is the mayor of Roseboro, Alice Butler, and also we have Tyler Wise. Tyler, I don't know. I want to give you the title as the instigator of things in the area because you really promote, come up with ideas, make things happen, grants, those kind of things. Mayor, when we went to break, you were talking about some of the restaurants in the area. It's got me thinking of all kinds of possibilities, but there's some of them that are just unique. You're not going to find it anywhere else. And you mentioned a couple. I don't want to kind of drill into that a little bit. One of them just recently opened, and it's a family over there, by the way, in that area, decided they want to open a restaurant, and they opened it in a former bank building.
Right. And that's the Cork and Brew and it's not, now the Cork and Brew is not a restaurant. So then they, as a matter of fact, they said they don't really see themselves becoming a restaurant, but they are a wonderful coffee shop. And that's what they are specializing in. 95% of their sales they see being coffee, and they have delicious coffee. They're open like 6 a.m. in the morning till 9 p.m. at night. And they have all the specialty coffee drinks. They have their own, roastery. They sell muffins and pastries and desserts and salads and sandwiches, those type things, but they're prepackaged. They're not preparing, my understanding, they're not preparing the food on site. But they had their grand opening, about 2 weeks ago, I think it was, about 2 weeks ago, they had their grand opening. Beautiful in there. They've got the patio with umbrellas for people to sit out and just enjoy a delicious cup of coffee or chai tea or whatever they would like.
I'm just sitting here envisioning as you're talking about that, and I'm thinking, who would have ever thought you would find a barista to prepare your cappuccino in Roseboro? You know, you're always people running around there looking for Starbucks and specialty coffee places, but in small towns, you've got that same kind of possibility and the uniqueness of that itself.
And you have to have someone that loves the area. And I'll just shout out kudos to Terry Spell and his wife Pam Spell. His wife Pam grew up in Roseboro, and he said, you know, Pam always wanted to give back something to Roseboro. They actually live in Alterville. Their son's the mayor of Alterville.
That's right.
For them to come over and do this it just warms my heart, to tell you the truth. But for Citizens Bank, it was a beautiful building, and they didn't want to see it just deteriorate. So they have taken this opportunity, and the community has just embraced them with it. I went in there Saturday. There were over 20 people in there enjoying coffee on a Saturday afternoon. So.
And the other thing I think that's interesting too, and Tyler, I'm sure you've looked at all this, but these small towns, to include Roseboro, is one of those things you can go and truly have a relaxed evening. You know, it's like you stop in the morning, get some coffee. You could sit there and sip your coffee, or you could actually take it with you, maybe do the walk around town or something.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about traffic jams, folks. I
would also add that, I mean, you can work at Quirk and Brew. They've left space for a meeting room. And so you can spend all day in Roseboro where you're going to do lunch, you're going to do dinner, you're going to do the hike, you're going to check into our boutiques. We have a florist now. We have a dog groomer downtown. We have a nail shop, and we have some hairstylists coming to downtown. So I think you can get all your errands done, but also your leisure activities completed in Roseboro now.
So you could get your latte. You could get groomed. You could get your pet groomed. You could, all of that. And as you said, it could be a day's event. Plus you could then go to one of the other restaurants there.
That's right.
Tell us about some of the unique kind of restaurants you have. I know there's several right close by within either the corporate city limits or right just outside that I hear people talking about all the time.
Well, Railroad Street Steakhouse has been there since 2010. And they sort of got the downtown restaurant going back. Downtown was struggling at that time. And a market study was done, and it showed that Roseboro could support a steakhouse. And kudos to Richard and Laura Barefoot. They took that market study and they ran with it. And they have worked it. They've worked it so it works. And I mean, it's packed on Sunday after church. That's where people want to go for their Sunday dinner, or Friday night for their steak, or Saturday night for seafood or whatever. So they've really worked that, and it's been successful since 2010. That takes dedication. That takes a lot of marketing skills. It takes that consistency to keep that going. So they've been there since 2010 and still going strong. The Reedy Mark just opened up recently. You want to talk about that, Tyler?
Yeah, the Reedy Mark is our sandwich shop. So we have gourmet sandwiches, salads. But she also has some amazing cocktails. They just make up different kinds of drinks. You give them one ingredient, they can make up just about anything. So that's an experience in itself, because they're making just these extravagant margaritas and things like that, but also bringing in that live entertainment. So if you want to have a chill night, you come on Thursday. Friday night, you want a little concert, you'll come. And Saturday and Sunday, they're working at it as well. And then we also have our seafood. We have Earl Jerry's, some of the best seafood in Sampson County. So we're getting there. There's still room for more. But we do have restaurants in downtown Roseboro.
Yeah. So, Mary, as we're talking about these things, I'm making the observation that they could go to a website and pull up some of this and look at it, and then plan their schedule around being in that area, so they can either have lunch or dinner or whatever, meal they'd like. But it's, again, as you said, this professional group said that restaurants is what's going to bring people in.
Right. And we're looking at where Benny's was. That will be one day a huge restaurant again. They are renovating it and, having to replace the floors and turn into a little bit bigger project than they expected. So we're looking forward to that being, and the plan on that is for it to be breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week when it opens up. So we hope that that'll be sooner than later, but all things take time. So.
And when we think about this idea of investing in Roseboro, I thought it was interesting. You mentioned the Spell family. Although they lived in Altreville, they decided, well, we're going to invest in Roseboro. That says a lot, because just from what I've heard you talk about, that's a pretty huge investment that family is making.
Yes, there's no doubt. Between buying the building, the bank didn't sell the property cheap. I mean, they had to buy and then they had to totally renovate it, and they've done just an amazing job. They didn't miss anything in renovating that building. So they have made a huge investment in our town, and they're already wanting to be sponsors of Bloomfest. I mean, they're stepping right in and wanting to be part of the town, which is wonderful.
When I look at that, I think I would be amiss if I didn't, and I sensed your feeling of, I guess, loss and frustration when First Citizens moved out. That was a huge kind of, should I say, void for Roseboro, for being historically the origin of one of the banks that stayed through the Depression. But now all of a sudden the bank says we're gone. That
was not a good day. They were a legacy bank for us. I mean, like you just said, they had been there. It was a shock whenever they did that. Even the people within the bank, the local vice president, told me had no idea that was going to happen. They didn't give any warning. They had already gone up to the federal regulations and gotten it approved. So that was a huge blow for us, for our town. It was very unexpected. And then on top of that, they were in March, Truist Bank, and I think it was August or September of the same year, they ended up giving their notice that they were pulling out of town also. So there we went from having two banks to no bank. And I think the very frustrating part about that is, if communication had happened, that would not happen, because you can't tell me that Roseboro can support a bank. Maybe it was two banks were struggling, but if there had just been communication between those banks, we wouldn't be where we are now. But also at this time, I'm going to go ahead and give kudos. Chip Crumpler with Crumpler Plastic Pipe. He has been on this from day one. They're huge supporters of First Citizens Bank, but it bothered all of us whenever they pulled out of Roseboro. And he has been the head. He's taken the lead on searching for a bank. So we have a good lead right now. They're staying in contact with us. And our hope is by the beginning of next year, we will have a bank back in Roseboro again. So we have not given up on getting a bank in Roseboro. But again, if communication would have happened, we wouldn't be where we are now. But it is what it is.
Do you think it's some kind of a trend now? It seems like larger banks are pulling out. Towns even larger than Roseboro, simply because of the technology aspect. They can't support the staff, just the existence of the building, cost, cost benefit analysis kind of thing.
That's definitely true. I mean, they want you to be doing everything online. Your mobile app, you can deposit, as we all know, you can deposit your checks on, with your phone now. So the banks are definitely going technology. But let's face it, a town like Roseboro, we are an older community. Let's not forget the older people. Everybody doesn't do that.
That's
people
true.
Still like that personal touch. Whenever you need a loan, you still need to be able to go into a bank to talk to someone to get that loan. But there's no question that is the trend now. And they say we have too many banks in the United States, and they are trying to consolidate them down. So yes, but they didn't have to do it in Roseboro. And, they shouldn't have pulled out two banks.
And one of the reasons I mentioned that is because I want folks to understand that this is kind of a trend. It has nothing to do with Roseboro itself. Right. It's happening all throughout the country. And you have to kind of face that and say, I'm going to do something different.
Right.
So we're coming up on another break. When we come back, I want to kind of, give people a little bit of a teaser. We're going to talk about some of the things that has been done already and in the works already that Tyler, you were involved in, which are grants downtown, buildings being refurbished, kind of a new facelift, should I say, in many of the areas in downtown Roseboro. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. We're talking about Roseboro, North Carolina, and what you might want to see if you go there. We'll be back in a moment.
Let's get out of here.
Protect what matters most in your life with security from Star Communications.
Honey, did we pay our bill?
What bill?
The Star Communications bill.
No worries, honey. With Star's paperless billing and automatic draft system, I get a notification sent right to my phone. There's no need to be bothered with those paper statements, and our bill is paid on time every month.
Well, that's easy and convenient.
It sure is, honey.
Honey?
Yes, dear.
The bake.
Oh, right.
Back, ladies and gentlemen, We Should Know is on there. Again, I want to thank you for being with us today. I'm J.W. Simmons, your host, and we're talking with the mayor of Roseboro, Alice Butler, and also Tyler Wise, who is the grantor, grantee, creator, motivator of things happening in Roseboro. Tyler, you've been there for some time, and we'll kind of come back and look at you and say, okay, there's things happening downtown that is in motion, some pretty large grants. I read where there's a building in the process of being restructured and refurbished. Tell us about that, and how hard is it to get that money and invest it in smaller towns in North Carolina?
Yeah. So our first grant is a rural transformation grant with the North Carolina Department of Commerce, and it is to rehab a building downtown that is 102 years old.
Yeah, it was built in 1922. Yeah. It actually has a Marquia.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So 102-year-old building, we are going to make the bottom retail space. In the top half, we're going to introduce some living quarters to downtown Roseboro. And so our second grant would be a stage at our community garden. We want to create a public space to where people can come and hang out, read books, listen to live music, host events, receptions, dinners, and things of that nature. And so we received a grant for that stage. But we also have some grants that are happening underground. Mm-hmm. If you'd like to talk about that.
Well, I'd say underground, we're very fortunate to have about $15 million in grants replacing old sewer lines, water lines. So those are huge. People don't realize, but we've got lines that have been in way over 50 years old and they need to be replaced. So we're very fortunate to be in the position to receive these grants. We were fortunate that we had already done our asset inventory. So we knew we already had our capital projects and what we needed. So we were, we were right in line. We had the information so that we could show you this is what we need and that we were awarded these
timing,
grants.
access, and need.
Right.
It all landed.
It all landed at the right time. So.
But I think that's important when you start talking about infrastructure. Oftentimes folks don't understand how critical that is, particularly for small towns.
Well, and that's what I tell them. What's the most important thing in a small town? People want their water to turn on whenever they turn the faucet, and they want their toilets to flush. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what people want. And Absolutely. You take that for granted until it doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
And obviously, sometimes in a small town, you don't have all the valves to turn off. And so whenever there's a huge water line break, unfortunately, all the water's lost out of the water tank. And that's probably been one of the biggest things that we've had to work on is we're in one of these grants is to replace water lines and to get some more valves. So hopefully when these water lines break, we're not having to lose all of our water out of the water tank.
That part of infrastructure, as you said, oftentimes folks don't understand, but literally we just talked about a building in 2022, which is, it wasn't yesterday, it was far yesterday. But really those water lines in some of the towns in North Carolina date back that
exactly
far.
Right.
And you hear people say, well, all of a sudden the water was tested and it had lead in it or something, and everybody panics. But you're kind of getting ahead of all that.
Right. We're doing all we can. And I will say because of the ARPA money, the ARPA grant money is what a lot of this is. And so we were able to apply for it and we were granted it. So, like I said, it couldn't have come at a more ideal time for us.
How does that work in stages? I mean, do you have to apply for the money, you get the grant approved, it comes, and then you start the process of, okay, we finish this and we finish something else. Is that the way it works?
Pretty much, but all of this with the ARPA money per se has to be finished by December of 2026. So they've got deadlines on all of this. So we've got over a $9 million project. They're already doing they've located the lines, they've cambered the lines. So it's got to be bid out by the end of this year, for that project. We've got a project going on now. It's over a $1.5 million project. We just finished up a little over a $2 million project. So, we are a very small town. There are only, 8 employees, 4 in the office. That's including Tyler, and 4 in the field. So we are very small, 8 employees trying to make all of this happen. So there's a whole lot going on for that small. Obviously, a construction company, is doing the work, but you still have to locate all your sewer lines, all your water lines for any type of construction that's going on. There's a lot of oversight that has to be done in this through the town and the paperwork that has to be done for these grants. It's very involved.
So with that said, anytime you got that number of employees and the other side of the house says, we got this big a demand, you got to look at contract labor. So is that accessible? Do we have enough contract labor in the area that can fill that void for the short period of time? That's a big issue for a lot of people.
Right,
they just say, we don't have people who's going to do the work.
Right. Well, fortunately, we have had people bid. I mean, all this is put out for bids when, and we have had enough bids come in, and on these projects, you take the low bid. So yes. Now they have had to travel like out of Taylor, can't think of the name of the town. Anyway, they've had to travel over an hour away. I mean, so these companies that are actually the construction companies that are putting the sewer and water lines, they're not necessarily from Sampson County.
Right.
So they're traveling in and bringing their team in and setting up.
How do small towns answer the question, I want to go there and I really like it, and I'd like to stay over for a night or two and just see how I like it. How do you work that in? What do you say to folks? Well, you can go here, you can go there. Is it bed and breakfast? What is that? How do you deal with that person that wants to stay for a couple of days?
Right.
Currently, we don't have lodging in Roseboro, but we're going to get it.
Yes.
But that's where partnerships come in. I think we can easily call Mary Rose and, say we have these visitors and this is what they're looking for. But they also want to experience Roseboro. But the lodging is in Clinton.
Right.
But we're working on it.
Right. But it is a process. And, and I know that question would come up.
Right.
So I'm just going to let folks know that there is proximity.
Right.
You can make things happen in Fayetteville or wherever, which is just down the street, so to speak.
Right.
And they can drive in.
I would also add the Convention Visitors Bureau invested in the widget app, and that will also help you kind of find places because it helps you to create an itinerary for the area. So it'll also walk you through those steps of finding what may be of interest to you.
Whether it be your bed and breakfast or...
Yeah. And we did forget one grant. She talked about underground, but we also have some interesting sidewalks. And so we've received some grant money to kind of redesign our downtown sidewalks to make it to beautify the area.
Right. But that was, and we got that through Golden Leaf, and it was actually for flood mitigation because with the way the current sidewalks are, water is going back into the buildings. So that has been a concern for a long time. And we're working now with the Timmons group out of the Raleigh area to design to get the water so it's not going into the buildings. And also we're looking for a design that's going to be pleasing to everyone.
Yeah, I want to circle back to that 1922.
That's it, 1922.
I'm just trying to put that in. So that building, and I guess I'm just amazed because the bones of that building is still structurally sound enough that you can go in there and do all these restructuring and end up with not only a piece of history, but something that folks may say, how do I get up with somebody, Tyler or the mayor, and say, I want to open something in that building?
Well, talk about town hall.
Town hall. Yeah. The town actually, when we found out that this grant was going to be available through NC Commerce, one of the things was that the town had to own the building. So at that point, we were actively seeking to purchase a building in downtown. And I will give our commissioners all kudos. They were all on board, and we went out searching for a building, and we actually ended up purchasing 2 buildings and have sold one of them because we did anyway. So this is the building, and this building was the one that we had purchased by the date. We had to own it by a certain date, and as we applied for the grant. So it all worked out. And the interesting thing about this building is the upstairs, which is going to be the living quarters, is going to have 2 apartments in there, 2 one-bedroom apartments. The idea is affordable housing. Hopefully it'll be something like a school teacher, something like that wants to work in the area and needs a place to live. So there'll be 2 one-bedroom apartments up there. But we found out in doing the research of this building, what is it that used to be up there, Tyler?
They used to embalm.
It was the funeral home.
There, yeah.
It was the funeral home.
But the bottom half was the furniture store. So you got
how far does that date back?
That would be in like 1922 when the funeral home, the Butler Funeral Home that now is the beautiful white building.
Right.
This is where they started out, was in this building that we are getting ready to make into retail. And and the 2 living quarters upstairs.
So a special attraction could be that I don't want to leave that. We don't want to go there, right?
But I think that's neat history. That's what it is.
But you can't, as the old saying goes, you can't change history.
No.
So once you put that out, it may just be kind of an additional thing that somebody says, well, wow. You know, that is really cool. And there's a lot of small towns that have those.
Oh, sure.
And the folks have got it. And you go in, you might be in a retail store and unless somebody told you, you wouldn't know the difference.
Right.
I think that's why it's so important. This year, we've focused on capturing the history.
Right.
So getting stories from that older population of what they remember. So a lot of times we talk about the movie theater that was once in Roseboro.
Yeah.
Right.
And what they remember as kids, and things like that. So that general merchandise store and yeah.
So it was interesting when you said that just this week. I don't know if you saw it, but someone put out, Lee Coleman does old Roseboro. I forgot the name of it, but it's a Facebook thing. And he was putting out some pictures and it drew a lot of interest. And it's actually where the Alive in the Borough, where the stage is going to be now, used to be Underwood Motor Company, which was one of the first automobile companies, from what I understand, in Sampson County. Yeah. And then later there was the movie theater that was right there. So, we're kind of taking it back into, getting it back into some recreation, into some entertainment by doing this. So.
And I think we kind of go through that process and we see things happening in small towns, and it is kind of part of our history. And it's important that we know that. And it kind of causes folks to say, well, maybe I do want to put something where the car dealership was, or where, I don't know that it's an advantage, but you got history to talk about. It's not just another new building going up. This was going on there. Right. So we're going to take another break, and we'll be back in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We're talking with folks about Roseboro, North Carolina.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up, and more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
You're out for an evening on the town. Finally a chance to relax and forget that you left your front door completely unlocked. Fortunately, you just installed a security system from Star Communications. With just your cell phone, you can check on your house, lock it down, light it up, and get back to relaxing.
He forgot to put Buster in his crate.
Unfortunately, we can't help with that. Security and automation from Star Communications. Call today to find out more.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. J.W. Simmons here. The name of the show is We Should Know. We're coming on the last part of the show. We are talking to, and have been talking to, the mayor of Roseboro, Alice Butler, and also Tyler. Tyler Wise, you've been around. You've been on the show a couple of times. You got a lot of things going on in the Roseboro area. I want to kind of reach out and kind of coin this thing that is, I don't know if you call it a motto or what, but it says, take root and grow. And is that something? How did that come about? And I see that label on a lot of the paperwork and the idea of this take root and bloom kind of thing. Does it have a flower thing to it? Is it something that was brought in from the historical piece?
It was actually a little bit of both. That was back in 2012, 2013. The town got what was then called an NC STEP grant. They were awarded $125,000. And at that time, the community came together, and we had about 30 people at that time that were meeting to decide on ways to improve Roseboro. And one of the things that came out of that meeting was that we needed to do rebranding. and marketing of Roseboro. So that's actually, it was voted on as far as which way we would go. Would we take the railroad theme, and that's kind of what the logo had been before, or would we kind of change it? So that was a consensus among the group of people that met, and we were led by someone from Raleigh, came down and led those meetings with us and was just wonderful working with us, getting us talking. And that's when we decided we wanted to come up with the rose, and they actually put us in contact with a branding agency, so to speak, out of Elkin, North Carolina. If you're familiar with them, they were just getting started, and they've taken off with the trails and being there close to the mountains and all of that. But it was a group, young lady out of Elkin. They came, they met with Roseboro. They spent the night. They got to know us and came up with the designs for us to choose from as far as the actual rose that we use. As you know, it's not an actual flower rose. It's, a drawing of a rose. And to be honest, the take root and bloom, I walk every morning with my friend, and we were talking back and forth. She was very involved in the community, and she's the one that came up with it. Lynn West came up, and it was take root and bloom. And so we took that back to the committee along with a couple other sayings. I can't remember what they were that we had just kind of came up with. And that was the one that was voted on. So during that time, we went through a process. Even the font of the letters was voted on by this group. So that goes back to about 2012. That's whenever we got up our new signs, Welcome to Roseboro, take root and bloom. So that's where that came from. Again, it was a grant. You have to have money to do these.
Sure.
In small towns, it's very hard. So whenever you are blessed with getting some extra funds, to use them wisely.
Tyler, I think it's a great idea, because when I look at that phrase and I look at the picture and I see it and it says take root and bloom, it makes me think about all these like new restaurants, new businesses. They know that not only can they bloom, but they can grow in Roseboro. They've got the proximity thing going for them, close to Fayetteville, attracting people. All of that's there. So, I mean, it just seems to me it's a perfect kind of logo for that area.
I agree. I wasn't a part of that process, but I definitely think it fits. I think we're experiencing our blooming season right now. And I think people should just come to see what Roseboro is all about. We have a lot of events going on to where you have the ability to come see Roseboro for yourself.
And we've got a new one coming up right now, and it comes directly from the Take Root and Bloom. Back in 2018, Allie Strickland came before the town board, and she had talked to me about it beforehand and wanted to come up with a festival for the town of Roseboro. And so what did we come up with was, and I'm going to say Bloom, BLOOM Fest. My husband thought I was saying Balloon Fest. So, but that's exactly where Bloom Fest came from back in 2018. And again, the Take Root and Bloom. And, that was kind of her thing, was she came and did a presentation and talked about Apex, North Carolina, where she was from, and how they had started a festival and how it had grown. And though she's not involved with it now because of lots of other things have taken up her time, we have continued that. And we've actually got our 5th Bloom Fest coming up, and Tyler has taken the lead on this, coming up April 26th and 27th. And I say the 5th one because we missed 2 years during the COVID process. The 2020 and 2021 years, we were ready to go in 2020 and had to pull the plug, as you say. And then 2021, we didn't have it. So this will be our first Bloom Fest coming up April 26th. We've got the Rhythm Express Band that Friday night that's going to be there in what used to be the community garden area. And unfortunately, our stage won't be finished then, but it will be soon. And then the next day, Tyler, we've got lots of things going on that day.
We shut downtown down and we take over the streets. We support our local vendors, which I think is what we do all year round. Is like we're trying to support everyone. We're trying to make Roseboro really on the map. But this year we have an event every month except for July and August. So if we have Bloomfest in April, then we have our concert series the other months. And then in December, we do our Christmas stuff. So there are multiple opportunities you have to kind of see Cork and Brew, to see the Reedy Mark, Earl and Jerry's, and things like that, and come support.
Right.
But Mayor, you just mentioned something that's interesting too. You got people like Allie. She's a creative thinker. You got folks in the area that just come to you and say, "Look, here's something we can do." I mean, that's huge. And plus, huge. You're talking about a generational thing. I mean, she's young mother, and very engaged in the community. And I look at it and I go, people have to draw from that energy.
Right, and it's wonderful. And I will say along those lines. And this is everywhere. We do need more volunteers. I will just tell you, to put on Bloomfest, to put on Alive in the Borough, as I mentioned earlier, I mean, there are 8 people that work in the town of Roseboro. That is their full-time job. But to do all these extras, you need volunteers. You need people coming up with ideas, but not just the ideas, but willing to work it. People come up with the ideas, but you need someone that's willing to say, and I will be in charge of that.
Right.
And so, Allie did it for a couple years, and then COVID happened and different things. And then fortunately, Tyler came on board. So, but you've got to have people that are willing, to work it. I
think that's an important piece I'd like to kind of expand on a little bit, is this idea of communities. For a while, we saw statistically where small towns were losing people. You had a lot of old folks like me and others there, and you were looking at, where's our youth? Where's our energy for our youth? And I hear you talking about some of the things you've got going on. You've obviously got some, young, aggressive energy that says, look, this town is going somewhere. It's going to evolve with time. I'm sure you've got broadband and everything there as far as connectivity, new water system going in. Now you've got venues happening where people's going to want to go to Bloomfest and follow that thought process.
I would also say you see young entrepreneurs. So our nail shop, like she's fresh out of college. We also have the Joey and Family's Tire Center. He recently graduated from UTI in Charlotte. So you see kind of just the different ages taking on the entrepreneur portion of our town.
How important is the marketing piece for a small town, Mayor, when you look at it? Because you want to get the good things you're doing out.
Right.
And one of the things that comes to mind is that you're in a huge move to improve your fire department over there.
Right.
And that is something that is, I call it a necessity. It's like we were talking about the water supply or the electricity. You got to have a fire department. Right. And so where are you with that, and how do you feel the community is engaging to support that?
Well, I'll tell you, the fire department, I mean, those are volunteers. Our fire department are volunteers again, and they need more volunteers. It's hard. They have to do so much training just to be a fireman. And people don't realize all the time that takes away from their family, and the calls that they get at 2 a.m. in the morning and 4 a.m. in the morning. And they seem to run in cycles. You may get 2 or 3 days without a call, and then you get 5 calls in a row. So one of the things that, really, when I first became involved in the town, when I was a commissioner, I was put on the fire and police commissioner is what I was. And I'll be honest, when I saw the fire department, I just couldn't believe it. It's been there since 1936. It has a lot of problems. The back end of it is basically falling in. I mean, just the building itself had a lot of problems. So I immediately saw a need. They needed a new fire station. And the bays, which is really cool, the bays were built in the 1970s by Lakewood High School students, which is really cool. But again, over the years, there's
degradation.
Yes. So there are problems, and it definitely needed a new fire station. So we've been trying through many avenues to get grants for it. And this past year, we were blessed through the legislature. They earmarked $4 million for us to build a new fire station. So that was fabulous. When I got that phone call in October, I was actually out of town, and I just sat down and cried because we had been working on that for so long to make that happen. And I have to give Representative William Brisson and Senator Brent Jackson credit. They worked with me. I sent them letters and pictures and the need, and they saw it. So we have now taken that process, and we've awarded it to Bobbitt Construction Company. There were about 8 of us out there last Thursday night on the property. And this is a cool thing. because this has been worked on for 8, 9, 10 years, and it's finally coming to fruition. But in December 2022, we had a family come to us and say, we want to donate land in Roseboro to the town. Would the town be willing to take this? And I was like, oh my gosh, that is our fire station. So we had the land right there. It was donated. It was on Business 24 across from where Horn Brothers used to be, or the Ford dealership. It was right in that area, the perfect spot for a fire station. I was like, we've got our land. And so they were generous enough to donate that to us. And then we had the land, and then we got the money to build the fire station. So we are in that process now of, exactly what do we need. And then recently, actually in January of this year, our fire department is part of the town. In Sampson County, there are only 2 fire departments, Clinton Fire Department and Roseboro Fire Department, that are part of the town. The other fire departments are all incorporated and work with the board members and that type of thing. Well, as we all know, the Roseboro rescue truck, which that is a separate entity, but it burned and it messed up that building. They had already been talking to our fire chief, Lee Coleman, about would the town take over the Roseboro rescue crash truck, because they were having trouble with volunteers driving it to when there were wrecks. So in January, our board said, yes, we will take over the Roseboro rescue crash truck. So now the town is also, we're going to get a new fire department. We are also, because obviously it burned in December, as most people know. So the town is going to be having to buy a new Roseboro rescue crash truck, and we'll be taking over those services. So our volunteer firemen are not only doing the fire training, they are now having to take rescue training, so that, because you have to be certified in order to do this. So hopefully by December, they're going to be certified. We'll have a Roseboro rescue truck that will fall under the fire department. And there was a Helping Hands did a fundraiser to raise money for the Jaws of Life equipment that needs to be on that truck for us, which was very generous of them to do.
A lot going on in Roseboro, North Carolina.
Yes.
But it seems to me that the leadership and the people that are there are willing to continue to fight this battle. I want to thank both of you for being here today. This time goes by fast. Any support we can offer, and I encourage people to visit and go over and meet the mayor and meet Tyler and just say hi. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having us.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us today. We look forward to seeing you again right here. And as we always close the show, we look at you and say, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.